Hello, my name is Lisa Mativier, and this presentation covers a study of the effects of child abuse and neglect on the victims, the adults, and the organizations involved. Hundreds of thousands of children are abused, neglected, or a combination of both yearly in the United States. These children suffer many effects from these situations, and sometimes it results in death. There are many adults and organizations to assist these children that would otherwise not know that they were in bad situations or that they had the opportunity to live a normal life. When a report is made about possible child abuse, several different aspects come into play and action is taken. These situations can be identified in children, adults, and the caregivers and can be addressed before things become extreme or aggravated. This study and recommendations are concluded on the research and findings from the Children's Bureau and the child welfare systems. Child Help is also an organization that provides resources and services for those that help children once they are within the system of the state or victims of child abuse and neglect. The analysis of the data supports the recommendations by 3 ways. First, identify what child abuse is and how it is defined by the state laws. Second, how to identify and recognize child abuse or neglect so that proper steps may be taken to prevent further child abuse or neglect. And lastly, once an individual suspects a child is being abused or neglected, the following steps and process that occurs after the child abuse or neglect is reported. Abuse does not always come in the form of physical abuse. It could come in different forms or a combination of different forms of child abuse or neglect. There is one element that links all forms of child abuse and neglect, and that is the emotional effects that it has on the children that are victims. So what is child abuse? Well, physical child abuse is any physical harm or injury to a child. Examples of physical abuse are spanking, hitting, or anything deliberately hurting a child. Accidents may be included, however, the main focus for physical abuse is the non-accidental injury to a child. Another form of child abuse is emotional abuse, defined as any attitude or behavior which interferes with a child's mental health or social development. For example, calling names or frequent yelling, threatening, or bullying. Sexual abuse, which most people are familiar with, is any sexual act between an adult and a child. Sexual abuse can be either physical, visual, or verbal, and does not always include bodily contact between the adult and the child. Some examples include exploitation, pornography, or performing sexual acts in front of a child, such as intercourse or masturbation. Neglect is also another common form of child abuse that people are familiar with. Neglect is defined as a pattern of failing to provide a child's basic needs. Some examples are failing to provide food, clothing, even supervision, or not providing necessary health care when the adult or child care has the ability to do so. Signs of physical abuse are easier to spot than emotional abuse or even neglect. Some signs of physical abuse are unexplained bruises, broken bones, or the child is scared of their parents or caregiver. Sexual abuse can be identified when the child shows interest in sexual acts when inappropriate for their age, or an adult is overly protective of the child, especially of the opposite sex. If a child is often late or missing from school, and the adult does not accompany the child to the school for parent-teacher conferences or activities, these could be a few signs of neglect. Emotional abuse is harder to detect. A few things that may indicate emotional abuse are delayed in physical and emotional development, or the adult talks down or belittles the child. Children that are abused or neglected experience the short-term effects such as bruises or broken bones, or even going through the grieving loss of being removed from the home. These children also suffer long-term effects such as developmental delays, low self-esteem, and no trust or relationships, or trouble expressing their emotions. So what happens when a report is made? Once the report is made, Child Protective Services, or CPS, determines if an investigation is required. If the case is screened in, or another investigation does need to proceed, then one of two things are determined. It's either unsubstantiated or unfounded, or it is substantiated or founded. If the case is unsubstantiated or unfounded, means not enough information was provided, determined that in fact there was child abuse or neglect. Substantiated or founded means that they were able to get enough information to determine that there was child abuse or neglect did in fact occur. If the case is substantiated, court action is started to ensure the child's safety by either removing the child from the home or providing additional resources for the families to prevent future child abuse or neglect. The more knowledge people have, the better equipped they will be to protecting these children. Based on the findings of this study, my recommendations is fund additional programs that help provide a comfortable alternative for families to recover from abusive or neglective situations sooner by having counseling or treatments that are needed. Another approach would be to implement a prevention plans in schools. Give children a safe place to learn about abuse and neglect and improve skills on stopping abusive situations. Knowing what to look for and educating others can improve the prevention of future child abuse cases and less removals of children from their homes. Child abuse and neglect is a serious situation that involves many people and organizations and is a top issue that we all need to help improve.